talking? The explosion. I can't even. To take official photographs of... Oh, results. The bearer, W.G. McLaughlin, has permission to take official photographs of results of explosion in and about the affected area.
So I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you is, like, what do you know about this film footage that your great-grandfather shot after the Halifax explosion?
I didn't even know it existed until I had found an old film container that had this footage on it, the actual footage that people now see. The total devastation when you looked at the film just made you say, how would anybody begin again?
It does impact us still in some ways. Some of the debris bits are just immovable. So it's just been people just walk around it, I guess.
That's what you do. Anytime I've been in life crisis mode, I don't have time to think about that. You just have to think about what needs to get done. How you need to sort of get into the next hour, the next day. But the emotional side of it doesn't go away. It just catches up with you later. And then what?
I wonder if redrawing that, you're reliving somebody's trauma. No, I don't think so. I don't think you can't get all the corners of it, right?
Until my grandmother wrote me a few pages in her book, it was never talked about. It was such a devastating point in there, I think, the people's lives, that it was never talked about.
When I was doing the drawing, I was drawing a part of two fellows. I think they had like sacks of grain, or there's tons of stuff there that are just blurry to me, or I just can't get the shape of. We all had different approaches for translating that image, but inevitably, I'm sure, the imagery is going to be missing vast swaths of details and information and perspective.
At the time, the windows in his house were blown out. He had a young family he's trying to deal with. His business, the skylight fell in, and all those sorts of things were happening. And yet, he still took time, in between to record.
Back then, film cameras were still a very new thing, probably not as light as my cell phone. And then there had been a snowstorm. And then only having so many minutes of film stock to use. So to have to choose what is worth capturing for posterity was kind of all in this one person's hands.
The loss of information and trying to gather what's missing is so difficult. And it was interesting to think that everybody around the table that was doing that work was having the same experience.
He put down his camera to help first. It wasn't, let me photograph all this tragedy. I need to help first. And, it's not the immediate aftermath he's filming. If you notice, it's a day or so later.
After the initial clearing of the major road arteries for transport, and finding all of the dead bodies and getting them sorted, it would have just been back to the regular folks that lived here, the inhabitants, to keep going.
That's our family through and through. If you see a need, you pitch in and help.
Having this quote-unquote depressed economy of Nova Scotia, and also the low population, that people have, I think, had to depend on each other more often, and that interconnectedness doesn't have as much of a stigma attached to it. Asking for help is just part of the everyday. I think some of that's it's stigmatized in some places, that you should be independent and, self-sufficient and able to make it. But here I think, asking for help often leads down new avenues.
God, what would I have done without you?
You would have turned it into something else.
No. Not by the deadline.